Hey guys, it's Jack. I wanted to let you know that we're starting a new push for subscriptions here on Human Events Daily. So make sure that when you're listening to this podcast, you hit subscribe, you download it, and you share it with 5 of your friends. Make sure they're all going and downloading as well, because we need to get the signal out as much as possible. Look, we've done so much over the past couple of years since this show started, and we're only going to do so much more. Let's get it. This is what happens when the fourth turning meets fifth generation warfare.
A commentator, international social media sensation, and former Navy intelligence veteran.
This is Human Events with your host, Jack Posobiec.
Christ is king.
What is that? What is that?
A deadly shootout near the White House is under investigation. Authorities say a man known to Secret Service pulled out a gun and began shooting at agents.
The 21-year-old Nasir Best took a loaded gun out of his bag and fired at Secret Service agents at that checkpoint. No officers were hit. Best was killed. This was not his first run-in with the Secret Service. Court documents obtained by 7 News reveal he had previously been known to officers for walking around White House grounds, asking how to get in. He once blocked vehicle access to the White House last June and was involuntarily committed to receive mental health treatment.
New this morning, President Trump says he is sending thousands of additional U.S. troops to Poland. A sharp turn after last week's decision to cancel a deployment headed there.
Voters will head to the polls for the Texas primary election runoff. It'll determine who moves on to the general election come November.
The president announced today a new diplomatic demand calling on Saudi Arabia and 5 other Muslim-majority countries to join the Abraham Accords, normalizing.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard today's edition of Human Events Daily. Today is May 26, 2026, Anno Domini. Huge, of course, as we know, election going on in Texas today, and we are going to be joined by someone from that election very shortly, I am told. Folks, there's a lot going on the ground, but if you're within the sound of my voice today in the great state of Texas, then you need to go out and send a message from the heart of Texas all the way to the dark heart of the swamp that it is time for the D.C. establishment, the do-nothing establishment, to get out of Dodge. We are draining the swamp, and we are doing so, as I said, a year and a half ago down in Texas, by declaring open season on that invasive species, the Texas rhino. Yes, the Texas rhino has invaded that great state, the plains, the farms, the ranches, infected the cattle with its pestilence. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for them to go. Folks, I'm told that we have Attorney General Ken Paxton now joining us on the line. Mr. Attorney General, do we have you?
I am on. I'm happy to be on, and I think it's going to be a great day in Texas.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that. Tell us what you're hearing on the ground. I know, of course, you're making your way all over the state as you guys close in on this runoff election.
So, Jack, I've been doing this for 14 months. I've been meeting with Texans from groups of 1 to thousands, and I've asked them one question. John Cornyn's running for a 5th term, which no one's ever done in Texas history, not Sam Houston, not LBJ, not John Tower, not Phil Gramm. He's been in office since I was in college. That's 42 years, and I'm 63 now. And I've asked them one question. Can you name one good accomplishment for the state of Texas that John Cornyn has accomplished, not just in his 24 years? I'll give him the whole 42, and no one's ever given me an answer to that question.
And so this is exactly what I'm talking about. The people of Texas have been sitting there saying, we want someone who supports the president's agenda. We want someone who's willing to put their money where their mouth is. And you, Mr. Attorney General, did exactly that when it came to the Save America Act. And that, of course, as we were told by the president, is exactly why he gave you his complete and total endorsement.
Well, there's no doubt that John Cornyn has even helped Joe Biden. Joe Biden thanked him for restricting Second Amendment rights in a way that few have done. He thanked them for helping him bring Afghan refugees to the state of Texas without vetting them. On the other hand, he fought President Trump not just on the Save America Act, he fought him on the border wall. He was pushing an open border amnesty policy. And on the Save America Act, he recently turned around and said he was for it, obviously because he's in the middle of a primary, but yet, under pressure, I said, if you deliver on that, one good thing, John, just deliver on one good thing, the thing that matters the most to the president, that matters the most to our state, probably the most to our country. And John said he was for it, but what happened? He went on vacation for 2 weeks. He went back for a week, went back on vacation, never got it done, never mentioned it again. Just typical of John, never delivers.
And that's exactly what the Texas voters are tired of. They want someone who will actually go up there and close down the border and work to make Texas Texas again. And Mr. Attorney General, that's why the President of the United States came in and endorsed you and put you over the top when you even said you had been willing to potentially get out of the race because you're taking action the same way you took action by instituting the Texas Children's Hospital, the very first ever D-trans clinic. Again, it's over and over that you've actually shown that you can put points on the board as opposed to making a couple of videos and then just walking away.
Well, look, there's no doubt that John Cornyn has run as a different candidate than he really is. They've spent over $100 million, probably close to $150 million, to try to convince Texas Republicans that he loves Donald Trump, which he does not. And remember, this is a guy that said that Donald Trump, in 2016, he said that Donald Trump was an albatross around our neck and that he was going to take other Republicans down. Guess what the message is from him now? That Ken Paxton is an albatross around our neck. Exactly what he was saying about Donald Trump. And then in 2024, he didn't support him again. He said that his day had passed, that we needed a different nominee and that we should look for somebody else. And he insinuated that Donald Trump is guilty of crimes. That's the John Cornyn that we all know. That's the one that's been around for 42 years. The fake John Cornyn has been running over the last 14 months, acting like he loves Donald Trump. The real John Cornyn will come back at the end of the day. All you have to do is watch the results.
All right, Mr. Attorney General, thank you very much. And hopefully after today, we'll be getting good news later tonight. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you.
Right back, Human Events Daily.
Stand in our way, and our golden age has just begun.
This is Human Events with Jack Posobiec.
Now it's time for everyone to understand what America First truly means.
Welcome to the Second American Revolution.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec back live, Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you a little bit, once again, about fluoride. Yes, I know, you heard about it, but let me tell you something. The government has been medicating your water with it for over 80 years. Not because you asked for it, not because you voted for it, because they decided you needed it. Well, that's not a decision I want someone else making for me or my family or the Poso family. That's why in the Poso household, every drop of water in our home is Cove Pure. Over 209 million Americans are on fluoridated water right now, and here's what the science actually shows. In September 2024, a federal judge ruled that adding fluoride to water poses, and I'm quoting the court directly, an unreasonable risk to neurological health. Not a fringe study, a federal court ordering the EPA to act. Then, in January 2025, a study published by JAMA Pediatrics, one of the most respected medical journals in the world, confirmed a link between fluoride exposure and children's IQ scores. Higher the IQ, the higher exposure, the lower the IQ. Sure, some states are moving on this. Utah and Florida have banned it, but that process will take years. Your kids, your family, they're drinking this water today, but not mine, because you need something that works now the same way it works for the Poso house, and that's Cove Pure. We're talking clear wave reverse osmosis technology, certified to remove up to 99.9% of contaminants, fluoride, PFAS, lead pharmaceuticals, heavy metals. Anything that isn't water gets filtered out. And don't wait for the government to catch up. Go get yourself a Cove Pure. If you use our link, covepure.com/POSO, you'll get $250 off. That's COVEPURE.com/POSO. Again, covepure.com/POSO. All right, so over the weekend, I'm sure you guys saw a ton of information that came out regarding President Trump's very extremely busy working weekend, and it was a working weekend for us here at Human Events as well. I do not take days off when there are matters of war and peace. And so very late Saturday night, folks may have seen over on Twitter, now known as X, I was able to publish a very long and detailed exclusive briefing that I got from senior White House official regarding the status of the Iran deal. Later participated on Sunday in a call with a different senior White House official regarding the status of the Iran deal, was able to ask questions back and forth, incredible amount of transparency. And look, this is absolutely key, that they weren't talking about this at first. 60-day negotiating period after the initial MOU will be signed, and that the administration is very, very adamant. In both of these, they were adamant by saying there will be no nuclear weapons. None. That is being taken off the table. Now, of course, the broad strokes are being negotiated, 60 days to finalize everything. The deal will be conditions-based. Release of funds, relief from sanctions for performance and progress on denuclearization, and stopping funding of terror. This deal allows for discussion on long-term frameworks to start. And even if long-term discussions fail, Iran is significantly weaker than they were militarily and economically before the war. I wrote that this is a smart move by Trump. He's going to step back and give it a chance. He's still got all of the cards. You saw the headline that we put up at humanevents.com on Sunday. This was no dust, no dollars. It's really simple, really, really simple. If they do not turn over this enriched uranium, then none of the sanctions relief will come in. I want to bring on my good friend, Navy Special Operations veteran, Tom Sauer. Tom, how are you?
What's going on, brother? Good to talk to you again.
Great to talk to you, man. So obviously you and I have been chatting all weekend about this behind the scenes. But let's just zoom out a little bit and talk about the broad strokes of this, because, Tom, I remember you and I were on this program. I think it's when we were up in Annapolis, actually, your old stomping grounds. Tom's a ring knocker. I'm not, folks. Chatting about Iran and all the rest of it regarding pre-war, basically saying, hey, this is what's going to happen. I kind of feel like we pretty much explained what was going to happen, and that is exactly how it was laid out. But back then, so many people were saying there's no way President Trump is going to get them to the negotiating table. It looks like they're there.
It does. It looks like they're definitely there. I mean, granted, maybe the timelines are a little bit longer, but it's still pretty short. I think everything that's happened, there haven't been any major surprises in any of this from when we were talking about this back in like February or something. But, and then also, so for example, I was on Fox News yesterday afternoon, and I felt like I was like in an argument almost with the Fox anchor of all people. I was really surprised, and I was trying not to come off as being adversarial, but like every single positive point I brought up always just turned into like, well, what about this? What about this? Well, if they open up the Strait of Hormuz, there's something like 1,500 ships. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take weeks for all those ships to get through there. And my answer to that was like, okay, maybe what's the alternative, right? This is, I mean, this is going to mean peace, right? Most likely. And on top of that, it's like, hey, look, is Iran going to try to play some games? Yeah, they might. But we got them at the table right now. We're on the precipice of a huge deal, especially if we dangle something like bringing Iran into the Abraham Accords, because that's now putting the Gulf states, these other folks, into a position where it's like they have to choose. I think this is quite literally, and you said it first, man. But I agree that like this could shape up to be Nobel Peace Prize material.
No, I think it would be Nobel Peace Prize material, and I saw a bunch of people on the internet were not happy with me saying that. But my point is, and they say, oh, well, what about this? Look, I understand. Like, guys, I get it. Like, this is still me. This is still the regular show that I do here. But point being is, nobody thought that they would turn around and say, hey, let's negotiate. And I think the key game changer was the use of Navy power, the use of the blockade, which I know that we certainly supported on this program. I saw there were some crazy people. There were some really wild accusations, really wild, ideas thrown out there about a ground invasion of Iran, or even a ground invasion of Karg Island, which would just be really, really rolling the dice with a lot of American lives. To your point, Tom, I know there's a bunch of boys over there itching to get in the action, but when you look at it from a geostrategic standpoint, you're talking about. I actually looked this up. Call me crazy, but Karg Island is closer to Iran than Catalina Island is to California. Okay, that's how close it is. It's actually closer to the Iranian coast, which means you're talking conventional like mortar fire and like artillery can just, maybe not mortar, maybe long mortar. You know, artillery could be able to reach those guys. You're talking Quezon on the Persian Gulf, if that's the situation. And I think President Trump was smart to bring in the blockade and say, you know what, we can turn the Strait of Hormuz to our advantage and make it just as much their problem as it is ours.
Yeah, and you know what? Look, we're still going to keep those troops. We've got 2 Marine Expeditionary Units and a brigade combat team from the 82nd Airborne in the region who, yeah, like I said, they'll be really upset if they don't get to kill anyone this year. But the thing is, though, is that, like, you still keep it there as an option. You never know what could happen. And you still want that as a threat. So, but I still think that I've always thought that us, you know, going into Karg Island or something like that, or, you know, or us taking part of the Iranian coastline that's near the Strait of Hormuz, which I do know there was a con-op floating around, like a plan for that floating around, which that would have been, could have ended up being rather intense. But at the same time, man, it's like this is Alfred Thayer Mahan, The Influence of Sea Power on History, which is up here behind me on my bookcase. And, you know, I read it when I was at the Naval Academy. It's required reading at the War College. And what it comes down to is, you know, sea lines of communication. And the Strait of Hormuz is probably one of the top 3 sea lines of communications in the world, you know, next to like the Strait of Malacca and maybe the Panama Canal or Suez Canal, one of those. But the thing, what you got to realize, though, is that we're choking them off economically. They're feeling the strain. And what they're also feeling is President Trump's resolve. They're realizing that, oh, wait a second, this guy isn't going to back down, is he? So I think that's it. Now, all that said, we all know that the Iranians can be pesky negotiators. They go back on everything. They don't really have respect for anyone's word or promise. They don't keep theirs. That could be, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to pull a fast one somehow, but that is why we're going to make sure that whatever happens, this deal will be verifiable. No dust, no dollars, right? Like as any sort of sanctions that get lifted, and which, you know, includes any frozen assets that would be unfrozen, any of that's all going to be conditional until we get what we want. I think they're finally feeling the strain, and that's why they're coming now. And look, the Iranian strategy really is to try to make Donald Trump's political life politically as difficult as possible for as long as possible. So with the hopes that he will lose in the midterms, that's considered to be, you know, like that's the game that they're playing, and they know it. And I think Donald Trump knows it too. So I think that we can outlast them, and it looks like we might have just outlasted them. I'm very, very optimistic. He really is.
Well, and to your point,
to be the president of peace.
Well, and to your point as well about, you know, whether or not the IRGC and every unit can be trusted. That's why we saw, waking up this morning on the East Coast, we saw that there was news that there had been limited strikes conducted by the U.S. Navy yet again this morning because they saw some evidence, some activity of mine loading, I believe, onto some small boats. That was done, Bandar Abbas region, and boom, they were struck immediately, straight up. They popped them and they went right back to the negotiating table because, as we've said, we do know that there's these questions about the leadership and whether or not the supreme leader has total control over the IRGC. Guess what? United States Navy is standing ready to be able to help them along with the negotiating and transition process as well. Right back, Jack Posobiec, Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice. We're on with U.S. Navy Lieutenant Commander Tom Sauer.
Today, you know, they talk about influencers. These are influencers, and they're friends of mine. Jack Posobiec. Where's Jack? Jack, who's done a great job.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec, we're back live, Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice. We're discussing all the latest developments, the Iran peace deal, the Trump deal with Iran. This is something, again, nobody thought that we would be here after just a few months. Nobody thought that Iran would be willing to make a deal like that, except nobody counted that this president would be able to make it happen the way that he did. We're on with Tom Sauer, veteran Lieutenant Commander, United States Navy, former Special Operations. And Tom, One of the things that I want to talk about very clearly, too, is look, you mentioned how on another network that they were saying, well, what about this? Or what about that? That's the nature of international relations. That's why we have a military. That's why we maintain our naval presence. That's why we don't drop naval presence just because we get, a fig leaf from somebody. That's kind of the whole point. You don't just pack up your ball and go home. But the point being is the fact that we're even getting these communications at all is something that I also remember hearing people say that wasn't going to happen. They were saying that the new supreme leader wouldn't be willing to do this. But I'll just put this out that I was told directly by a senior White House official, very senior, by the way, that there's a situation now where, yes, the IRGC and the hardliners are up there, but also a lot of those guys have been wiped out in the early stages of this. And the guys that have moved up now, they want to keep their positions, and they realize that going up against the United States probably isn't a good way to be long for this world or long for that. So they'd rather cut a deal, stay in power, and then the regime, moves on to whatever situation that it goes on to next. So the moderates and the pragmatists are actually fairly ascendant, and they have a huge voice in the new regime that's actually taking shape in Iran. That's number one. Number two is people have been saying, why is it taking so long? Well, the answer on that was that the new supreme leader, it's taking so long to get answers out of him because his communications have been degraded to the point where it's basically carrier pigeon was the quote that was used, because they're terrified of him picking up the phone that could be traced, or sending a video file that, again, can be digitally traced through forensics to be able to find where he is while this thing is still open. And so they're in a situation where this new regime isn't going to be like the old one.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, people don't realize that, we killed the entire upper echelon of Iran's military and just their regular government. We killed all of them. I mean, it's at the risk of sounding extreme. Imagine if in the first day of the war, the American, the White House, the entire cabinet, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, everyone who was a 3-star and above got taken out, which I'm more than that. He made a 2-star and above, for Iran. That's how many people got taken out within the first few days. It's pretty insane if you think about it. And you're absolutely right. Those who are ascendant are, one, they probably might like their new positions, and two, they probably want to keep their lives. So that makes a lot of sense. And especially now when we had some of these rogue elements of which most likely they were IRGCs, because the entire command and control network, C2, as we say in the biz, it has either been completely destroyed or at best compromised. So most likely, I would not be surprised in the least if it turns out that those elements of the IRGC Navy that was going out there, maybe setting up missile sites or doing a little bit of attempting to do some indiscriminate mining on those speedboats, that those folks weren't doing so with permission from Tehran. I'd be willing to bet that they're cut off from communications, or they felt that, well, whoever's in charge, they're a puppet, they know what they're doing, and they're going to be, good Iranian patriots, or I guess martyrs, and they're going to go out and do what we want. We're not going to listen to whatever the stooges who are left remaining in Tehran are going to tell us to do. Now, I don't know that for a fact, but that's pretty informed speculation, I'd say. And keep in mind, they don't have much left. We took out their entire mining inventory. What was left of their mines, of the few that they have, are probably ones that they just had locally on hand in certain places. That's why already I can tell you right now from my sources that the actual mines that have been deployed number are just double digits, probably fewer than 50, over a 540 square mile space of water. So, the thing is it still takes a long time to search, but it's not, it's still dangerous. There's still a mine there. But just think about the size of that is, and so it's just going to take time to search. I think it's going to be, I honestly think these things are going to work out just fine. There's plenty of room for time to talk, and there's plenty of room for Iran to make mistakes, and then they get swatted for it, which I think we saw that early this morning.
No, I think you're exactly right. And by the way, I certainly agree with a lot of people who have come in and said, look, if we actually wanted to perform full scale regime change in Iran, that would require an extremely costly ground invasion, one that would, again, as we said earlier, talking about Kharg Island, where you don't really know how those things shake out. This isn't Iraq. This isn't Afghanistan. It's not one of the forever wars that he campaigned against directly, that J.D. Vance campaigned and spent his entire career campaigning against. It just hasn't been one of those things. Is it more than last year? Absolutely. But this thing has largely stayed in the air, and it's gotten President Trump to a really good spot. So it stayed where? In the air and on the sea. And as it turns out, because of the way that Iran is situated, actually worked out pretty well for us.
Yeah. Oh, no, it absolutely did. Yeah. And the thing is like, look, people don't realize that Iran, like the whole concept of us like staging some sort of a ground invasion for regime change in Iran is absolutely bonkers. And look, you love to talk about the map. I love to talk about the map. And like, just look at the topography. This isn't like Iraq, where it's just most of it, especially the southern part, is all just flat desert. You can just scream across. Like Iran is all mountains, right? Like you're just asking for it. I mean, that is not a place that we would ever want to invade for a number of reasons. And Iran, I'm pretty sure they do a pretty damn good defending themselves. So that's not something that like anybody was talking about or asking for. Now, granted, hey, if the CIA or whoever decides to, earn their pay and they decide to arm for an uprising or something like that, the people say, hey, that's a cool, nice to have. But that is not an objective.
Tom's going full Lawrence of Arabia, Lawrence of Tehran on us.
No.
No. But no. Look, Alexander the Great was able to do it. Perhaps the Greeks might try it again. Tom Sauer, thank you so much again for giving us your time and being here on Human Events Daily.
Thank you, brother.
God bless, man.
Jack. Where's Jack? Where is he? Jack, I want to see you. Great job, Jack. Thank you. What a job you do. We have an incredible thing. We're always talking about the fake news and the bad, but we have guys, and these are the guys who should be getting Pulitzers.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec back live, Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice. Now, of course, we had the Attorney General of Texas on at the beginning of this program, but I did want to dig in a little bit deeper on what's going on in Texas because we've got so many other races happening. We were also seeing this huge fight between the grassroots and the establishment. And I wanted to bring on someone who's been absolutely essential and an essential partner, a family partner, I guess you could say, in terms of this fight for the America First MAGA fight in Texas. And that is the folks over at Patriot Mobile. And today we've got Jenny Story with us. She is the COO of Patriot Mobile. Jenny, how are you?
I'm doing well. So good to be on this show.
Oh, it's so good to have you here. Now, I remember, I can't believe it's been almost a year and a half ago now that I came down there and we had the big event and I talked about going after the Texas rhino and I declared open season and all that. And that was the grassroots effort that you guys put together, the work that you did on the ground of putting together candidates and bringing in figures from all around the country to come in. Now, talk to us about how doing the work, that small neighborhood by neighborhood, block by block work that Patriot Mobile has done through your action arm and through your other political efforts outside of the, the cell phone service that everybody knows. But talk to us about how that's made a huge impact in Texas, one that, by the way, everyone can see because Ken Paxton just got endorsed by President Trump. And if people go out and vote for him today, he's going to win.
Absolutely. And actually, it's the organizations we support. So we really are intentional with who we are supporting. Texas is a battleground state. Everyone thinks it's red. It really isn't. It's becoming very purple. And actually, as you know, in the March primaries, we were outvoted by the Democrats by about 130,000 people. I'm a little concerned right now. We're in the low digits in terms of people that are actually voting in this special election. And this is a critical special election. There are so many important seats right now. Paxton and Cornyn is number one in a lot of people's minds. And if you look at who our grassroots organizations are endorsing, they're endorsing Paxton. But the concern is that we have open primaries. And what that means is that the Democrats can come over and vote in our special election. And what you've probably seen is Cornyn is making an appeal right now to Democrats to come over and vote today. Today is the last day, and it's a critical day. And I am encouraging everybody who didn't vote in March, you can vote now. And we need Republicans out there who care about this state, because the grassroots are motivated for Paxton. If Cornyn wins, there is no guarantee that Republicans will get off the couch to go vote in November. We have a serious risk of losing the state. So we need the grassroots. We need those folks that thought, hey, I've got other people that are going to vote for me. Less than 10% have voted. I mean, this is crazy. There are not enough Republicans voting in this. I think everybody is thinking that their neighbors are taking care of their vote for them, and they really need to go out and vote now. I mean, we have till 7 p.m. People need to take the time to walk over or drive to a polling station and vote. It's a very critical election, and we're going to find out really the state of this state tonight when the election results come in, because I really am concerned that the grassroots will be disengaged in November if the right people are not voted.
Well, Jenny, you're exactly right. And I remember talking about this with Charlie Kirk going into 2024, that he would say the enemy isn't the Democrats. The enemy is complacency. The enemy is the couch. The enemy is that, scrolling up and down on your phone and looking for something else to do instead of actually going out there and voting and making sure you get in the fight. And what's the point, right? What's the point of us complaining about the way things are going if we're not actually going to do something about it? And it's really, really simple. There's so many ways to vote these days. There's so many opportunities. All you do, you take some time, you make a plan, and then what do? You bring 10 of your friends with you. So 10x your vote, bring 10 of your friends. Come out in 2016, we used to call it MAGA 3X. So we 3X your vote, and you come on out. And it's really a simple concept, but ultimately that's how our elections are run. And in fact, I hope it's how our elections continue to be run. I'd rather stay this way than the craziness that the Democrats, of course, have been trying to push. That's one of the reasons that the Save America Act was written in the first place, to try to get a tightening of our elections. But because when that is actually done, it's actually the best system on earth for reflecting the true will of the people at the ballot box and getting better representation, which is, of course, why the Democrats and so many in the establishment want to get rid of it.
That's right. That's right. And right now they're being very strategic and we're being very complacent. So we've got time. We've got a few hours left to go. And I think it's very important. Don't take for granted that your neighbors are going to be voting, and you have to recognize, Cornyn did an appeal last night in a social media post, and he said, hey, if you didn't vote in March, come on out and vote now. And there are a lot of circulating commentary about the fact that Democrats are being reached out right now to vote for Cornyn. So that should tell you something.
And that really tells you everything out there. Look, we need our force multipliers out there. And if you're listening to this show, and by the way, even if you're not in Texas, even if you know people in Texas, or you've got, contact through social media, friends, family, whatever it is, just start going through all of them. Just go through your phone and put in whatever, the Texas area code and be like, oh, yeah, I remember this person. Oh, yeah, I remember that person. And go in and just start. Hey, did you vote yet? Hey, did you vote yet? Hey, make sure you go to vote. I'm personally all in for Ken Paxton. I'm also in for Beau French. Tell us some of the other candidates that you guys are looking at.
Well, we're technically not allowed to endorse, so I'm gonna keep it at that. But let's just put it this way: the grassroots, they've spoken. We're supporting the grassroots, and we'll let them do that. So.
No, totally understand. Look, it's all about civic engagement, and it's making sure that conservatives and Christians actually go out and make their voices heard. If you don't do it on election day, then guess what? You know, I used to hear that line, if you don't vote, don't complain. And it's really actually kind of true. You know, there's all these people who try to make it sound like you're cool or edgy if you're, you know, oh, I'm not going to vote. Like that actually makes you a better actor or something. No, it doesn't. It just means you're a nihilist and you're actually essentially just helping people who want to see our country go down the tubes.
Absolutely. I mean, and I would just suggest that everyone vote for the boldest America First candidate, the one that's actually been out there doing what they say they're going to be doing. Don't just take for granted what they say they're going to do. Actually look at their record and see that they're actually fully engaged and fighting for this country.
I can't agree more. And look, I say this as a Northerner, right? You know, a dirty Yankee, that Texas is the heart of our nation.
That's right, and it's at risk.
Is the beating red heart. And if Texas falls, if Texas is swept over and gets pushed from purple into blue or worse, then guess what? It's game over. It's absolute game over for all of us. That's why Texas is so essential.
Absolutely. 40 electoral votes. If we lose Texas, we won't have another Republican president. It's that critical.
It's really as simple as that. So it's critical for everyone out there. And you go out, you vote, and you come up. Tell us, you know, while we do have you on, you know, I noticed we have about a minute left. Tell us a little bit, just since you're here, if people want to hear more about Patriot Mobile, if they want to get involved, if they want to see, say, you know what, I'm sick of giving money to companies that don't align with me, that don't align with my values. Tell us a little bit about how they can get involved with Patriot Mobile.
Absolutely. So we are a mission-based company that supports its mission by selling high-quality cell phone service. So essentially, we're on all three of the major networks, all U.S.-based customer support, and you can get a feel for all the different things that we're doing. We try to post occasionally, well, probably every other day, we post the different activities that we're involved in. But we're supporting faith, family, and freedom. Our focus is on the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, pro-life, and our military and first responders. So, you know, when you're joining us, you're not compromising in terms of any of your service, but you know that you have a company that's been on the front lines. We're actually not just talk the talk, we do what we say we're going to do, and we're out there boldly working with other organizations, collaborating and trying to expand and magnify or amplify the dollars that are given. So by working together, which is what we're very good at doing, we hope to expand the message, the fighting power, and do whatever we can to save our God-given rights and freedoms.
Jenny Story, thank you so much for joining us and everything that you and Patriot Mobile are doing down there in Texas. God bless you. And say hi to Glenn for me.
We're going to call this the Jack Posobiec Appreciation Hour. I can say confidently, I think Josh Shapiro would be the vice presidential nominee if it wasn't for Jack Posobiec. And that is, I'm being honest.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec here. We're live, Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice. Listen up, folks. June 21st, you got 1 month left for dear old dad. Father's Day is coming up. So why don't you want to give your dad, who gave you so much in this life, who was there for you, who was there and molded your life every step of the way, why don't you give him the gift of a great night's sleep? Pay him back for all of those sleepless nights before, when you were a kid, when dad was there for you, or when dad was the last one to go to bed and the first one to wake up every single day of the week for his family. Now, folks, we know Ghost Bed is family owned and family operated. And by the way, they have 3 generations of doing business right here in the United States of America. They are American made. And check this out. Right now, you can get, or your dad can get in this case, 101 nights to try Ghost Bed at home risk-free. Now, if you don't feel the difference, you can send it back right now. Ghost Bed is offering my audience, Human Events Daily, their lowest prices of the season, plus an extra 10% off. Just go to ghostbed.com/POSO and use promo code POSO. That's ghostbed.com/POSO, promo code POSO. And for the record, yes, I did actually go and get my parents the Ghost Bed. Of course, I use promo code POSO. No question about that. But we went in and said, this is absolutely something that they love. And my mom actually made a little video about it that I have yet to post. So I'm going to do that post haste after the show here today because they're really loving it. They went with the Split King and they said they were great to deal with. They came in, they set the entire thing up. It was really, really cool for them to have. So they're really enjoying it. I heard those do well. I've also been told that the full beds are going really, really well for the Human Events audience. So Human Events audience buying a lot of those full beds over at ghostbed.com/POSO. Make sure that you are getting your dad, your mom, whoever in your life, and yourself, by the way, yourself, a great night's sleep at Ghostbed. Now, folks, I want to talk about this. As we were doing the show today, a video came out from James O'Keefe Media Group regarding this guy, what's his name? Sean Hudson or something. So he is the director of community relations of the Washington Nationals. And also, reached out to a source I have in the MLB world who told me that, look, the community relations folks are always the slimiest that were out there. A lot of them come across like political journalists. They're always looking for juicy info. They always have putting their personal ambitions, kind of an extension of HR, always pushing diversity, always pushing the equity themes. But this guy, Washington Nationals Director of Community Relations, is on camera in this James O'Keefe video going off on Christians, I'm told that we have a small version of it. I'm going to play that for you right now.
One of our pitchers, dude, Trevor Williams, he is very Catholic. The Dodgers had a group out to the stadium who were drag queens who sometimes dressed up as nuns. He went on like a social media, like, this is wrong, this is my religion, you all are mocking it. Because of that, we don't use him on social. Like, when they're like, is a hot dog a sandwich? And like the players come up, you know what I mean?
Okay, so for those of you who remember that specific incident that he's talking about where the LA Dodgers brought in who were called the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence is something that I participated in helping to with Bishop Strickland and many others participating in a march against them where we got about 3,000 people together right outside of Dodger Stadium. Catholics and a variety of other Christian denominations came out. And we were aghast. We were absolutely aghast. In fact, we play a clip of that. We play a small clip of that in the intro for the show every day. And this is something where the head of community relations who says, our pitcher is too Catholic for social media, that he isn't allowed to be used in any of their promotions. He's got these Catholic tattoos that mean too much, and they won't use him on anything. This is just beyond the pale. It's beyond the pale. When are Christians going to start standing up for themselves in this country? Look at this guy. His beady little eyes. He's disgusting. And that's how they talk about you behind closed doors. That's how they talk about Christians. They never say this about a Jewish player or a Muslim player or a Buddhist player. No. But they'll say it about Christians. And you know what? He doesn't even care. He doesn't. In fact, he's mocking you. He has disdain for you. Christianity is the only religion in the world that the mainstream allows you to mock, to attack, to demean, to slander. You're allowed to hate Christians. You're allowed to kick them out of jobs, to shut them out of social media. Oh, they'll have Pride Month. I'm sure if you go on their website, right, I'm not even going to look. We're a couple of days away from Pride Month. I bet you they got Pride Night down there at the Washington Nationals, the Nats. So you can have your LGBT, you can have a homosexual night, but do they have Christian night? Do they have a night for Christians to come out and support? No. Christians, if you're too Christian or too Catholic, you get shut down. You get censored. And there he is telling you, he's telling you that's the agenda. That's the plan. We're going to shove LGBT propaganda down your throat and down the throats of all the children who come and watch baseball in their stadium. But if you support Jesus Christ, if you're a Christian, if you're a believer in Jesus Christ, if you're Catholic, that's got to be covered up. The rosary's got to be covered up. The cross has got to be covered up. The crucifix has got to be covered up. The resurrection has got to be covered up. The blood of Jesus has got to be covered up. And he's right. He's being honest. He's telling you like it is, because that is how it is. When I talk, and I say this all the time, on Good Friday, 1950s, 1956, the 3 crosses of Calvary up there on the New York City skyline. They were put there for a reason. But in the 1960s, people took them down for a reason. People like Sean Hudson of the Washington Nationals took them down for a reason. Because these little men in little rooms decided to get together and say, this country has gotten a little bit too Christian, a little bit too conservative, a little bit too pro-Jesus. We need to pull it back. We need to hide it. We need to cover it up. And what do? They put the pride flag up instead, because there will always be a religion in the public square. There will be a civic religion in the public square. And that's what you see now. Tolerance, diversity, equity, inclusion. Tolerance of everyone unless you're Christian. Equal to everyone unless you're Christian. Diverse to everyone unless you're Christian or white, I might add. Inclusive of all, except Christians, and certainly except white people. So there you go. There you go. I actually appreciate him. I actually appreciate this guy. I'm glad that he said this on video. I'm happy that he said this on video, because now I can prove it. I love when James does these videos, because he gets these people to actually confirm what they believe behind closed doors. They don't want those crosses on the skyscrapers. They don't want an America that worships Jesus Christ openly. Well, guess what, boys and girls? The United States of America is a Christian majority country and has always been a Christian majority country. And we are going to start being Christian in public yet again. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay ashore.